Trump and the Prime Minister who invited him to meet the Queen.
Because we're leaving the European Union, she's desperate for friends.
His cell phone bill hit 24 grand.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Will a new review cut your risk of an ugly surprise? Plus, testing the limits of Canada's tolerance.
If you say this in Canada, they say, wow, this guy is, xenophobic.
Terence McKenna investigates. One of Justin Trudeau's senior ministers was in Washington today, the first cabinet-to-cabinet meeting between the Trudeau and Trump governments. It was an encounter between two former soldiers, each carrying the defense portfolio for their respective countries. So a lot to talk about, but a lot of groundwork to lay, too, for an even bigger meeting coming soon. Our Katie Simpson is in Washington tonight. Katie.
Peter, Harjit Sajjan received a pretty warm welcome from James Mad Dog Mattis, but the sentiment wasn't exactly echoed today by the president. Canada's Minister of Defence and his American counterpart were all smiles for their first official meeting.
You were happily my first phone call.
And the new U.S. Defense Secretary wasn't shy in showing his appreciation to the Canadian military, especially for its efforts in Afghanistan.
First troops that came in to reinforce us at Kandahar, and they were a welcome sight. I always told people, for don't ask, don't tell in those days, I'd have been hugging and kissing every one of you guys coming off the plane.
When I look at Canada-U.S. relations, I don't look at it from a bilateral sense. I look at it from a relationship that forged on the battlefield together.
The pleasantries are welcome for the Canadian delegation, as it is facing pressure to live up to its military funding commitments.
We strongly support NATO. We only ask that all of the NATO members make their full and proper financial contributions to the NATO alliance, which many of them have not been doing.
Each NATO member is supposed to put up 2% of its GDP toward defense spending. Canada is only contributing about half of that. Experts say meeting the target is not realistic, and Harjit Sajjan should regularly play up the other ways Canadian forces contribute.
We could talk about Canada's efforts in the past in Afghanistan, its future effort in Latvia, that Canada shows up when NATO is called every single time.
Sajjan's visit to Washington is the first of two by Canadian cabinet members this week. Finance Minister Bill Morneau is expected to be in D.C. on Wednesday. The high-level meetings are part of the Trudeau government's attempt to nurture its evolving relationship with the U.S.
I think kind of a business as normal tactic towards these relationships will speak to a larger business as usual move as we look onto the more contentious issues in the future.
But there are warnings that Canadian ministers shouldn't do too much to stand out.
The Canada strategy should try to stay out of stay off of Trump's radar screen because he tends to get very petulant and overreact to things.
Expect to see the Trudeau government focus on strengthening the cabinet-to-cabinet relationship as one way to approach Donald Trump and the uncertainty that sometimes comes with him. Peter.
All right, Katie, thank you. Well, while hundreds of thousands of people around the world have been protesting against Trump policies, some in Britain are doing that and more. They're trying to keep the U.S. president out of their country, and more important, they say, out of Buckingham Palace. Nala Ayed explains.
A state visit is the crown jewel of welcome mats, highly scripted and highly coveted. The Queen's only hosted 109 of them in exactly 65 years today on the throne. There is no higher compliment for a guest in Britain. And so for some here, there is no higher offense than offering one to Donald Trump.
And a state visit should be reserved for someone who upholds values of freedom and democracy, which he doesn't.
The Prime Minister leading the UK on its way out of the European Union invited Trump over on behalf of the Queen last month, a gesture too forward for critics, sparking a backlash.
Theresa May's problem is, because we're leaving the European Union, she's desperate for friends. So she zoomed off to the United States of America. I don't think Trump deserves to be allowed out of the United States of America, to be honest.
Rarely is an invitation issued so quickly for an affair requiring such intricate planning.
In the case of the American president, they've taken place usually in the first 2 or 3 years of a presidency. But like everything in the way the British do things, there's room for pragmatism, and visits can happen more quickly.
But there's concern it may be awkward with someone so unpredictable. A petition that says it could be embarrassing for the Queen has attracted nearly 1.9 million signatures, many more than needed to trigger a debate in Parliament. One thing is certain, a Trump visit isn't likely to include a speech at Westminster. The Speaker today citing opposition to sexism and support for an independent judiciary.
After the imposition of the migrant ban by President Trump, I am even more strongly opposed.
But the Prime Minister, whom critics have taken to calling Theresa the Appeaser, has ruled out a recall.
That invitation stands.
So they have started planning for that day too, aiming for the biggest protest yet. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.
The Queen may have had other things on her mind today. Sapphires, perhaps. This 21-gun salute was in honor of what Nala was talking about, the Queen's 65 years on the throne, her sapphire anniversary. She also got a 62-gun salute at the Tower of London and chimes at Westminster Abbey. The palace released this photograph of the Queen wearing the sapphire jewelry her father gave her. A U.S. appeal court will hear arguments tomorrow on whether to reinstate the administration's controversial travel ban. A lower court judge suspended it temporarily. In the meantime, a few more lucky travelers made it into that country today. Overall numbers are hard to nail down, but lawyers in New York reportedly believe just 12 people caught by the ban were able to enter a JFK airport over the weekend. The U.S. president made an accusation today, though he did not back it up with any specifics. Donald Trump said the media is not reporting all acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, it was a media interview he gave that was causing international ripples. Susan Ormiston is in Moscow with the details.
It is worth reviewing just what was said late yesterday in the now infamous exchange about Vladimir Putin.
I do respect him.
Do you?
Why? Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. Putin's a killer. A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
This morning, the Kremlin reacted, not to the answer, but to the question, and they called on Fox News for an apology. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, said O'Reilly's question was, quote, unacceptable and offensive. But there was no critique of Trump, even though he didn't come to Putin's defense. One political commentator, considered close to the Kremlin, explained away what he called Trump's strange response.
All presidents and prime ministers could be regarded as killers, and especially those who is fighting against bad guys as terrorists. They some kind of killers, but they're good killers.
The take on Russian newscasts this evening, that Fox News was disrespectful and Trump was right about U.S. killers in places like Afghanistan and Libya, playing straight into the well-worn narrative here that America is the marauder, and the U.S. president just said so. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Moscow.
Israel's parliament has approved a bill to make legal already existing Jewish settlements built on privately owned Palestinian land. Opponents within the Knesset believe it is illegal and a step toward annexation. Supporters say owners will be compensated in money or other land. The international community largely opposes the settlements as an obstacle to peace. Protesters in Romania's capital used their phones to highlight their continued presence, even after their government scrapped a proposal to shield it from corruption charges. Hundreds of thousands want the regime to resign. Coming up, Canada gets top marks for how it welcomes immigrants. Could that change in turbulent times?
Those elements of intolerance and small-mindedness and xenophobia are just below the surface.
I don't think that 2/3 of Canadians are racist.
Terrence McKenna investigates the politics of immigration. A Winnipeg woman has been found guilty of disposing the remains of 6 infants in a storage locker. Andrea Giesbrecht was arrested in 2014 after police found human remains in garbage bags. But they were so badly decomposed, experts could not determine how the infants died or if they were born alive. Giesbrecht faces up to 2 years in jail for each of the 6 charges. The man found not criminally responsible for decapitating a Greyhound bus passenger in 2008 is asking for an absolute discharge. Will Baker, formerly known as Vince Lee, must currently meet some court-required conditions, including supervision while he takes medication for schizophrenia. An absolute discharge would make him a free man, which his victim's mother is strongly against.
I don't believe for one second that Will Baker poses no threat. He will be a risk to public safety for the rest of his life. What if he chooses to stop his medication again? In a nutshell, I don't believe that should be his choice to make anymore.
A ruling is expected in the coming days. The head of the RCMP is refusing to tell Canadians why the force is investigating Canada's second highest military commander. Last month, we told you Vice Admiral Mark Norman was suddenly relieved of his duties. No explanation, no details. CBC News learned it was about a leak of classified information. And as Murray Brewster tells us, today's development comes amid new revelations about more leaks from inside the Defense Department.
RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson was here to answer questions from senators today. Unfortunately, he didn't have much to say about Vice Admiral Mark Norman.
That individual's been put in the front page. His professional credibility is obviously in question. And can you give us an update?
I cannot give you an update. I think if you had questions relating to his duty status, that those are properly placed before the military.
But the question wasn't about his duty status. It was about whether or not Norman was under investigation for allegedly leaking classified information, possibly about shipbuilding. It is the RCMP's responsibility to look into alleged breaches of national security and to inform the public. To this point, what we have learned about the case, strangely enough, has come through leaks. That the public is relying on leaks to learn about an investigation into alleged leaks alarms some in the legal community.
The RCMP needs to know where to strike the balance between the public's right to know and the RCMP's ability and right to carry out an investigation that's unhindered.
Paul Champ has fought many disclosure battles with the RCMP on national security cases. He wonders how much of the RCMP's silence is related to the failed and high-profile prosecution of Senator Mike Duffy, something widely covered in the media before the trial began. This former national security advisor to both Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau says national defense is a leaky place.
Over the course of my career, I've either asked for or ordered a number of inquiries to be made when classified information has been leaked.
I think as Canadians, we deserve transparency. We're not getting that from the government. We're not getting that from the RCMP.
Richard Fadden says that his concern about leaks at DND did not relate to top secret data. His remarks, however, do raise more troubling questions, foremost among them, whether or not the current RCMP probe is more widespread. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Parks Canada says that after a 130-year absence, bison have been successfully reintroduced to Banff National Park. Last week, officials airlifted 16 bison into Panther Valley, but it was kept quiet until today. The herd will be monitored in an enclosed pasture for the next 16 months before being allowed to roam freely in the park. Bringing bison back to Banff was done as part of Canada 150 celebrations. With a few possible exceptions, there's nothing Canadians love to complain about more than cell phone bills. Well, this week they can take their beefs right to the source. Today, the CRTC started hearings over the wireless code. It's supposed to make cell phone service more consumer-friendly and protect consumers from shockingly large bills. But as Aaron Saltzman reports, the code still has some holes.
Last summer, Jesse Jansen lost his phone while staying at a hotel in Chicago. Whoever found it cracked the password and used 8 gigabytes of roaming data.
I got my regular monthly bill instead of my regular $67 bill,
It was a little bit higher this time. It was about $24,000.
That, in cell phone parlance, is what's known as bill shock, and it's one of the things Canada's wireless code is supposed to prevent. The CRTC created the set of rules for cell phone providers in 2013 to enhance consumer protection and prevent things such as costly data overages.
We must be forward-looking if the code is to remain relevant, so we are listening.
This week, the CRTC is holding a public hearing looking into the effectiveness of the code. Many consumer advocates like the code, but say it needs to be updated.
Certain wireless service providers have actively or passively, knowingly or unknowingly, avoided or violated or attempted to change clear wireless code requirements and have not largely been stopped.
That's partly because there are gaps in the rules. For instance, the code says cell phone companies are supposed to cut off users if they hit $100 in roaming overage charges. To continue, users have to consent to pay more. But to obtain that consent, many companies simply send a text to the phone. The person with Jesse Jansen's device got that text and agreed to pay for more data.
This idea that whoever's holding the phone can type yes with no verification whatsoever who you are is absolutely unbelievable.
Jansen eventually got his provider to lower his bill to $1,200, an amount he feels is still too high. Stories like that are why consumer groups want the wireless code changed so that only account holders can agree to further data usage, one of a number of tweaks they're suggesting. The big cell phone companies say they think the wireless code is fine, just the way it is. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
We're just over a year away from the Winter Olympics, and Canadian officials are already preparing. Today, the National Olympic Committee named the woman who will lead Canada's athletes in 2018.
La chef de mission d'équipe Canada à Pyeongchang, la triple médaille olympique, Isabelle Charret.
Speed skater Isabelle Charret will serve as chef de mission. She competed in 3 Olympic Games and won a medal in each as part of the 3,000-meter short track relay team. Last night's Super Bowl is already being called the best comeback of all time. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots overcame a 25-point deficit to win the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. The game smashed records, but not for TV audiences. 111 million people across the United States tuned in. Canadian numbers have not been released to the public, but reports suggest CTV's ratings were down nearly 40% to an average of 4.5 million viewers. That's because of a CRTC ruling that, for the first time, allowed Canadians to see the big-budget Super Bowl commercials on the American channel. On the West Coast, the Super Bowl was a welcome distraction from what was happening outside. A record-breaking winter storm hit parts of British Columbia over the weekend, leaving some parts of the region that rarely sees snow stuck. But as Mira Baines shows us, this time around, Vancouver was all smiles.
At the University of British Columbia campus, Vancouver's snowfall is considered epic. This winter is one of the snowiest in decades. Hundreds of students packed the campus's main mall for what may have been the largest snowball fight here ever.
Well, I was excited. I love snow, and we'd almost never get it around here, especially in February. I can't stop.
The city struggled with a number of massive snowfalls over the past month. This time, it coped much better. There's a different story to the east, where it's been snowing since Friday. Parts of the Fraser Valley have seen up to 60 centimeters of snow. Highways and roads are still littered with stranded vehicles. Police are crediting farmers for rescuing many drivers during the worst part of the storm.
If it weren't for a lot of the farmers, we probably wouldn't have successfully rescued about 20 people from their vehicles.
Even today, schools and businesses were shut down in places like Abbotsford, where plows have struggled to clear mounds of snow. Stores that were open didn't have many customers.
I just had 2 people walk in, and they're like the first 2 today.
Forecasters say the lower mainland isn't in the clear yet. The south coast is under a snowfall warning. As much as 15 centimeters of fresh snow could fall by Tuesday morning. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Straight ahead, Canada's arms are wide open to the world. But what lies beneath our image of acceptance?
So the experiment with Mr. Trump is an interesting question because this beautiful world that I'm describing here in Canada is a fragile one, a very, very fragile one.
Many Canadians take pride in this country's reputation for acceptance and tolerance. As other Western countries face pressure to close their doors to refugees and immigrants, Canada's stance is considered exceptional. But nothing says it's eternal. There are voices that strongly question the government's immigration and refugee policies, especially in a world of charged rhetoric and rampant suspicion. Terence McKenna has this close-up look at Canada's politics of immigration.
The Max Bell Arena in Calgary.
What's good?
Every Wednesday afternoon, buses arrive carrying kids from all over the city. They are the children of recent immigrants and political refugees who have settled in the area.
Push your heel all the way down.
The kids are outfitted in donated skating and hockey gear.
Good. Yay!
The transportation is provided by the Calgary Police Foundation.
It's okay. Hold my hand.
They move on to the rink, where they are taught first to skate.
Okay, now you take the end of my hockey stick. Take little baby steps and push forward, okay? Atta girl. Good work.
And eventually to play hockey.
When I blow the whistle, you guys are going to try and skate to the other end.
By volunteer instructors from the Calgary Police Force. Everyone is having a good time.
I like it so much. I wish I could learn.
It might help if you had a hockey stick.
Calgary Police Sergeant Gareth Joles.
They get a chance to connect with one another and play our national sport. Families themselves get to connect. They're sitting on the bleachers while these kids are out playing and they're connecting. The kids also get to see the service as just people, and we're out there volunteer time, engaged with the kids, and we're hoping that that's going to alleviate any apprehension or fear they might have of police in general, and that one day down the road, if they need to call us for our help or whatever, then we're there for them. I'm hoping that one or two of these kids one day will maybe want to put on the police uniform and go serve the city.
In downtown Calgary, at the Maple Leaf Academy, the sign reads, "Many cultures, one Canada."
I am from Venezuela. I'm from Kazakhstan. I'm from Iran. I have been here for almost 1 year. I'm from Syria.
Syria, okay.
This is where immigrants come for training programs provided by the federal government, including English as a second language.
Well, let's talk about something that you all should be familiar with at some
Here,
point.
too, there is a special class to introduce newcomers to the Canadian legal system.
Our equality is all in here, is guaranteed by this document.
The instructor is Raul Espinoza, a Calgary police officer who immigrated to this country more than 20 years ago from Colombia.
I heard some Spanish being spoken, sorry.
We're covering off about their rights and freedoms now that they're Canadians.
It's what we call a crest.
We're also covering off and talking about what to expect from us as a service if they get pulled over at a traffic stop.
So ask them for an ID, yeah?
Many of the students come from authoritarian countries and so are suspicious of police.
Ask them for a badge or a badge number.
You can see at the beginning of this, it's a little awkward. And by mid-morning, now there's a bit of chuckling because they're working through scenarios together and overcoming some of these language barriers.
All right.
And before lunchtime, it's full-on photos and selfies, and it's really neat to see just on both sides. As police officers, we're nervous of them because we don't understand. But at the same time, it's a chance for these ESL students, these new immigrants, to see police officers in a different light.
Calgary has distinguished itself by becoming the first major city in the Western world to elect a Muslim mayor, Naheed Nenshi. It made headlines around the globe.
Today, Calgary is a different place than it was yesterday.
Nenshi's family immigrated to Canada in 1971 from Tanzania, at a time when many refugees were coming from East Africa. He was born in Toronto a month after they arrived, then moved to Calgary as a young boy. He graduated from the University of Calgary and then received a master's degree from Harvard. In 2010, he was elected mayor. He sees his family story as typically Canadian.
What's extraordinary about it for me is just how ordinary it is. It's a very Canadian story. A story of coming to try and create a future for yourself and for your family, and finding a community that is willing to invest in you, that is willing to support you, and willing to let that happen. Now, it wasn't all beautiful. There were moments of pretty severe poverty for my family and certainly for my community. There were certainly small and isolated incidents of xenophobia or racism that I dealt with growing up, but everyone who is a minority in a different community deals with that. You just learn how to deal with it.
Mayor Nenshi is a regular visitor to the Genesis Center, a huge facility where immigrant families often come for wedding ceremonies and community celebrations.
We're gonna do 4 more.
They exercise in the gym, play soccer on an indoor field, do homework in the library, or maybe just have coffee with neighbors.
When someone who has just come from a refugee camp in Jordan walks into this beautiful space, they think, this is for me. I live in a place where the community has built this beautiful space that is open to me. Everyone belongs. Everyone deserves that place of dignity so that they too can live a life of dignity. And to me, that is a very important aspect of what we as a city government do, but what we as a community do. It was really, really important to tell a story of a place where this works, where multiculturalism works, where pluralism works. Now, I gotta tell you, we gotta fight every single day to make sure that we stay that way, because those elements of intolerance and small-mindedness and xenophobia are just below the surface. And We have to fight hard not to give them permission to come to the surface.
Calgary is not without incidents of intolerance. When it was announced that a large group of Syrian refugees was about to arrive in the city, anti-immigration vandals spray-painted racist graffiti on cars downtown and inside the train station.
A bunch of people saw it, reported it immediately, and a bunch of young men, young men in their 20s who you don't necessarily think of in this way, saw it and were so upset that they ran home, bought supplies, and came back to the train station in the middle of the night to clean up the graffiti. And what they found was that my colleagues at the City of Calgary were already cleaning it up. So instead, they used the supplies they had to make signs of love and welcoming. So the next morning on people's commute, you saw these 20-something guys holding big red paper hearts.
Quebec is the province of Canada that has struggled most with immigration issues. It has the worst immigration retention rate in the country.
C'est la part du kirpan en public qui me dérange un peu. Le port de la burqa de la femme voilée au Québec.
C'est pas les Chinois qui sont venus coloniser le Québec, c'est pas les musulmans.
One factor has been the very loud public debates about immigration through the 2007 hearings of the Bouchard-Taylor Commission on Religious Accommodation.
Ah, Bernard.
And the Parti Québécois Charter of Values proposal.
Alors je vous remets.
That PQ plan was soundly defeated in the last election campaign. But the new PQ leader Jean-François Lisée is bringing back identity politics, once again campaigning to ban Muslim clothing in public spaces, following the European examples. He even suggested that a Muslim woman could hide a machine gun under her burqa.
Well, yes, everyone's discussing this in Europe for a number of reasons. If you say this in Canada, they say, wow, this guy is, xenophobic. Well, you have to know that it's okay to ask this question.
You refer to, maybe you were ahead of the time, but a woman could hide a machine gun under a burqa. Do you understand that many Muslims would take that almost as hysteria, racist hysteria?
I understand that, but I know, we know for a fact that the RCMP or the CSIS believe there are 25 suspects close to the Islamic State in Quebec as we speak. There's been one attempt in Saint-Jean. There's been one attempt in Ottawa. There were students from Maisonneuve that were caught with explosives in Montreal. These are facts, And so should we be prudent or not?
None of them was a Muslim woman hiding a machine gun under her clothing.
No, this happened elsewhere, okay? But a discussion about full veil in the public sphere. And I've seen 10 European democracies have had this discussion and gave different responses to it.
Our bodies, our lives, our rights to decide.
Would Canada benefit from the same passionate debates about banning Muslim clothing that have occurred in Europe? McGill University demographer Daniel Weinstock thinks not.
I think that what's been happening throughout Europe and now in the United States, and there's signs that some of it might be making it here to Canada, is the sense that people have the permission to express things that they might have until now felt that they needed to repress. Various politicians, and Jean-François Lisée is not the only one, have not understood just how dangerous it can be in the present climate to try to make short-term political gain by even winking or nodding in the direction of these often very difficult to control sentiments that are out there.
Ms. Kelly Leach.
On the national stage, the immigration debate is most striking in the Conservative Party leadership campaign.
We're talking about common sense ideas, whether that be screening immigrants for Canadian values with face-to-face interviews.
Candidate Kelly Leach has grabbed attention with her proposal to increase the screening of all future immigrants to make sure they share Canadian values.
Look, I think we would agree that violence, hate speech, those are things that are not Canadian values. And we're seeing overwhelmingly that the vast majority of Canadians agree that we should be screening for Canadian values and having face-to-face interviews with respect to those values.
And just because the media and the elites don't want to have this discussion?
How do you identify Canadian values? I think that throughout the world, and in Europe in particular, talking about the values of the Netherlands or the values of Canada is code for talking about those groups that we have determined were somehow civilizationally not quite in tune with us. It's become a code word for talking about Islam. So I think that everybody who listens to Kellie Leitch is not worried about Danish people coming to Canada and having to understand what Canadian values are. I think that people who listen to her know exactly what she's talking about, and it's a very dangerous road to go through.
You know, many have reacted to your proposal saying this is just code for keeping Muslims out.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm pro-Canadian. I'm not anti-anything. And I do find it interesting that others want to depict my message in a different way.
Kellie Leitch first gained prominence during the last federal election campaign, when she unveiled the Harper Conservatives' proposal to establish a barbaric cultural practices hotline.
So that citizens and victims can call with information about incidents of barbaric cultural practices here in Canada.
It would have allowed Canadians to report their immigrant neighbors to police if any untoward behavior, such as forced marriages or genital mutilation, was suspected.
Conservative leadership candidate Kellie Leitch said
She later apologized for the incident in a tearful interview on CBC's Power and Politics.
The message was lost, and I take responsibility for that.
Most other Conservative leadership candidates have criticized her new immigrant screening proposals. Aren't these immigration screening proposals in the same vein?
Not at all. I think that what we were talking about there were protecting girls here in Canada. What I'm talking about, as I say, is a shared value set.
Does it give you pause that most of the Conservative candidates and prominent Conservatives in Canada are pulling away from you over this issue?
Well, look, I understand people's hesitations. You know, when you have the media and others going after you relentlessly on these issues, I'd probably want to run away too. But I actually am a little tough. I'm a pediatric surgeon. I do have a backbone. And for me, 2/3 of Canadians are with me. 2/3 of Canadians on multiple polls agree that we should be screening immigrants for Canadian values, that we should be having face-to-face interviews for people coming into the country. And so I don't think that 2/3 of Canadians are racist.
When we return, will the anti-immigration wave in the United States and Europe find an echo in Canada? The global anti-immigrant wave has boosted the fortunes of European radical right-wing parties, such as Marine Le Pen's National Front.
La politique des Français, pour les Français, avec les Français.
And Frauke Petrie's Alternative for Germany. And it strongly contributed to the Brexit victory in Britain.
We got our country back.
And Donald Trump's triumph in the United States. What will be the political effect in Canada? Kelly Leitch issued a press release proclaiming the Trump victory, an exciting message that needs to be heard in Canada as well.
I think the message from his victory is that there is that gulf that's been developing between the common person and the elites that they had in Washington. And I'm hearing a bit of that also here in Canada.
Many worry that there will be an upsurge of support in Canada for the anti-immigration ideas espoused by Donald Trump.
So the experiment with Mr. Trump is an interesting question because this beautiful world that I'm describing here in Canada is a fragile one, a very, very fragile one. And it's important that people who have microphones and megaphones talk about this. And I think in Canada we've gotten to the point where we can talk about it.
50 years ago, Canada implemented an immigration system that emphasized the long-term economic development of the country.
I, Karl Rothberger.
About 70% of immigrants are selected based on education levels and language skills. 20% based on family reunification, and 10% for humanitarian reasons. For immigration experts around the world, Canada is cited as the most successful model of integration. The majority of residents in Canada's largest city, Toronto, are now foreign-born. And there didn't seem to be a great fuss when that threshold was passed.
The sense that you get walking through Toronto today is of a city that doesn't really belong to anybody in particular. One of the things is that we are blessed here in Canada, and I think Quebecers may disagree with me about this, but I would say that this is true of Quebec as much as it is true of the rest of Canada, with a very thin identity, not linked to religion, not really linked to any strong ethnicity, and therefore one that is very easy for new arrivals to latch onto. You know, Mackenzie King said Canada a country with too much geography and not enough history. I think the fact of not having the kinds of millennial, 1,000-year-old grievances that we find in a lot of places in Europe is something that has served us well.
One of the oldest immigrant neighborhoods in Calgary is served by the Connaught School. In his first year as mayor, Naheed Nenshi was called upon to address the 100th anniversary of the school.
And I looked out at the kids. There were 240 of them. They came from 61 different countries. They spoke 40-some languages at home. And I felt a little bit uneasy because I had talked to some of these kids and some of their parents about their stories. And I had heard horrific things. I heard stories of violence and of degradation and of poverty and of inhuman acts so horrific you can't imagine people doing that to one another, let alone in front of a child. And in an instant, I had a moment of incredible clarity. I realized that regardless of what had happened to these kids and their families, regardless of what wrath some vengeful God had visited upon them, they had one stroke of incredible luck. And that stroke of incredible luck was that they ended up here. That they ended up in Canada, that they ended up in Calgary, that they ended up in Connaught School. That they ended up in a place where the community had a stake in them, and just like me, the community was going to make sure they succeeded to their best potential.
Of course, the shooting at the Quebec City Mosque has shaken Canada's self-image as a tolerant and welcoming society. The incident did give pause to some of the critics of Canada's immigration policy.
C'était pas une bonne idée ce que j'ai dit là-dessus.
Jean-François Lisée, for example, announced that he had gone too far with his story about Muslim women hiding machine guns under their clothing. In Quebec and across the country, the attack brought thousands into the streets, demanding that Canada remain committed to the welcoming of immigrants. Terence McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
1 week from tonight, Terence will have part 2 of his documentary. He'll take you to Germany, where a bitter divide over immigration policy is tearing that country apart. Coming up next, what happens when long-term care simply doesn't meet the mark?
Everybody will have a story about a parent, an aunt, a sibling, who the system is failing them.
A British Columbia woman is left to feel revolted by the state of her own hygiene. The desperate situation of a quadriplegic woman in British Columbia is prompting calls for a national strategy on home care. Lana Turner requires help to do most things, but after relocating, she says the quality of care has nosedived. So much so, she hasn't had a bath in over a month, and now she's going public. Erica Johnson has her story.
When Lana Turner moved to Surrey from Vancouver Island last December, she couldn't believe how much poorer the home support was. Workers are often too rushed to perform basic, necessary tasks.
I shouldn't have to choose between being changed and clean and having something to eat, I don't think, right?
No taking her to a facility equipped to bathe her either. And told for some reason no workers could come after 6 p.m. She'd have to get into pajamas and be put to bed then.
So it's tough.
In desperation, Turner asked her niece to fight the local health authority, Fraser Health, but a manager said nothing could change.
I just don't understand how a manager can be okay with this and how this is normal. It seems normalized. I feel like I'm the odd person by putting my hand up and saying, well, this isn't right.
Across the country, home support is a patchwork of services. The feds give provinces money for health care. The provinces give money to health authorities. They often contract out work and decide who gets what care. This home support researcher says Canada desperately needs a national strategy on home care, so there are standards and uniformity. Otherwise,
we're going to hear more stories where people are going to have complex unmet needs, and it's going to be those people who are most vulnerable, who are relying on a public system, that are really going to fall through the cracks.
After our inquiries, the local health authority now says it's reassessed Turner's case. She'll get longer visits, an evening visit, and that bath.
We're confident we will find a solution to be able to provide a bath for her in the community.
A spokesperson for the federal health minister told Go Public the government is committed to improving home care, pointing out it's earmarked $6 billion for it in a healthcare funding deal it's pitching. A deal 8 provinces and territories have signed on to. However, BC, Ontario, and 3 other provinces are still holding out. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And remember, these stories happen because of you. If you have a story in the public interest that you think needs to be told, please reach out, either directly through the Go Public website or by email. And you can follow Go Public on Twitter. Up next, we'll show you where government corruption is a tourist attraction. But first, let's check today's business numbers. The TSX fell by 19 points. The Canadian dollar is down slightly. The Dow Jones dropped 19 points, and oil is down 82 cents a barrel.
I'm Laura Lynch. Tomorrow on The Current, a new report by Amnesty International chronicles mass hangings and brutal extermination tactics in a government-run Syrian prison. The author of Human Slaughterhouse on The Current, weekdays at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
Well, it was just another quiet night on patrol for an Illinois police officer until the sudden appearance of a cosmic fireball on his dash cam. The meteor lit up skies across the Midwest last night. Other people caught it on camera as well. Hundreds reported seeing it from as far away as Ontario and New York. Some people in Wisconsin even reported sonic booms that shook their homes. Mexico City has a new attraction called the Corruption Tour. An open bus, fittingly called El Corruptor, takes passengers around to 10 city landmarks. A recording then explains their significance, from a financial scandal over the president's luxury mansion to the monument for missing students. Organizers say they want to spark public debate over corruption in the country. And you're looking at some of the standout performances from the 4th annual Wind Games, held this weekend in Spain. It's like a combination of indoor skydiving, dance, and gymnastics. 200 athletes took part, while millions of people around the world watched online. This year's winner was a 14-year-old girl from Singapore. That's the Nationalist Monday Night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Peter Mansbridge. Thanks for watching.